Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to completely transform our understanding of biology. We're going to do that by zooming way in, past the skin, past the tissue, straight into the microscopic metropolis that is actively operating inside all living things. Think of your body not just as a single entity, but as a walking, breathing galaxy of tiny, bustling cities.
So, let's kick things off by asking a pretty fundamental question about the hidden, living world we interact with every single day, usually without even realizing it. We walk through nature, we drink water, we touch surfaces, assuming that what we see is all there is. But there is this massive, thriving universe literally locked away from our naked eye.
Picture a kid splashing in a puddle after a rainstorm. To us, sure, it's just a bit of muddy water. But if we could suddenly snap on a pair of microscopic goggles, we'd see that everyday environments, like that very puddle, are actually overflowing with complex living organisms. Fungi, bacteria, tiny aquatic creatures, they're all right there, sharing our space, completely invisible to us.
So why can't we see them? Well, it's a hardware issue. We're limited by our own biology. The human eye can only resolve objects down to about 0.1 millimeters. To put that into perspective, if two tiny dots are closer together than 0.1 millimeters, your brain just blends them into a single point. Meaning, anything smaller than that threshold requires a microscope to be seen. We literally had to invent new technology just to peel back the curtain on this microscopic world.
Section 1. The building blocks from cell to organism. Let's look at how these microscopic units scale up to create the massive, visible world around us. To actually build a complex living being, nature follows a really strict, highly logical hierarchy. It all starts with a cell, the fundamental building block. But cells don't just work alone. They group together with similar cells to form tissues, like the muscle tissue in your arm. Those tissues then fold and combine to form an organ, like your stomach or your heart. Organs then team up into an organ system, like your digestive tract, which ultimately operates within the complete living organism. It's an absolute masterpiece of biological engineering.
Section 2. Inside the cell factory, a coordinated system. Because a single cell isn't just a passive blob of jelly, it is a bustling, highly organized factory.
Stepping onto the factory floor, right in the center, we find the nucleus. You can think of the nucleus as the CEO's corner office. It's heavily guarded by a double-layered membrane, and inside, it holds the essential DNA blueprints and chromosomes. This is the master control room. Every single activity, every protein manufactured, every signal sent within the cell is dictated by the coded instructions locked inside this incredible structure.
And just like a thriving city or a massive manufacturing plant, the cell relies on specialized workers. We call these organelles, and each one has a highly specific job. You've got ribosomes acting as the immediate protein synthesizers. The endoplasmic reticulum, or ER, serves as the sprawling manufacturing floor. The Golgi apparatus is your packaging and shipping post office. And the lysosomes, they're the crucial waste disposal and cleanup crew, breaking down damaged proteins so the factory doesn't turn into a toxic dumping ground.
When you put it all together, it builds a continuous, beautiful production line. The endoplasmic reticulum, spreading out like this massive network, manufactures materials like proteins and lipids. But it doesn't just leave them sitting there. It hands them off to the Golgi apparatus. The Golgi then acts like a microscopic fulfillment center, modifying, sorting, and packaging these products into tiny bubbles called vesicles. They're then shipped exactly where they're needed, either inside the cell or expelled right outside of it.
But how do these intricate factories get the energy to run all that heavy machinery? Enter the mitochondria. Famously known as the powerhouse of the cell, these organelles take glucose and break it down to release usable energy. And if we look at plants, they actually take it a step further with chloroplasts, which act like biological solar panels that synthesize food directly from sunlight.
Part 3. Comparing cities, plants, animals, and bacteria. Because, of course, not all microscopic cities have the exact same infrastructure.
It's really fascinating to see these physical differences side by side. You've got bacteria, which have these tail-like appendages for swimming, and a very simple internal layout. Then you have plant cells, featuring a rigid, thick cell wall, because, well, plants can't run away from a storm, right? They need structural armor. And then animal cells, which are much more flexible, allowing creatures like us to move, bend, and dance. The major divide here really comes down to two categories, prokaryotic and eukaryotic. Prokaryotic cells, like bacteria, are tiny, just 1 to 10 micrometers, and highly primitive. They completely lack a true membrane-bound nucleus. Their genetic material just kind of floats in a specific region. Eukaryotic cells, however, found in plants and animals, are the luxury models. They're up to 10 times larger and packed with all those complex, membrane-bound organelles we were just talking about.
So with all these internal factories, protective membranes, and rigid walls in place, we really have to ask, how do vital resources actually get inside the cell? How does this microscopic city import its goods and export its waste without compromising its borders?
It all happens through a fascinating process called osmosis. The cell's membrane is selectively permeable, acting a lot like a highly intelligent bouncer at a club. It allows water to move across the boundary to balance out concentrations. This is exactly why if you drop a potato slice in pure water, water rushes into the potato's cells to balance the internal concentration, causing it to swell up. But drop it in heavily salted water and the water rushes out of the potato to dilute the salt outside.
In a hypotonic environment, where there's lower solutes outside the cells frantically gain water and swell, literally like a water balloon filling up. Conversely, in a hypertonic environment, where it's super salty or sugary on the outside, the cells lose water and shrivel up like raisins. It is a constant, incredibly delicate balancing act of survival.
Section 4. Expansion. How cells grow and divide. We know how they're built, we know how they survive, but how do they expand?
There are two main strategies for reproduction here. Every single day, hundreds of billions of cells in your body are replaced through a process called mitosis. This is just routine maintenance, creating two perfectly identical copies to heal a cut or grow a fingernail. But meiosis? That's a totally different ballgame. It's a two-step division strictly reserved for sexual reproduction, cutting the genetic material in half to create beautifully diverse, entirely unique new life.
And you can literally see this relentless cycle of growth happening. Looking under a microscope at the growing tip of an onion root, you aren't just seeing static shapes. You are watching the physical, dramatic stages of division frozen in time. Chromosomes are lining up, pulling apart, and splitting the factory in two, just to push that root deeper into the soil.
Understanding all this complex machinery has pushed us to the absolute cutting edge of modern science. In a landmark experiment, researcher J. Craig Venter and his team proved something frankly astonishing. They chemically synthesized a DNA sequence on a computer, printed it in a lab, and inserted it into a hollowed-out cell. That artificial blueprint booted up and completely took over the biological factory, forcing it to follow man-made instructions.
Which leaves us with a truly mind-bending final thought for this explainer. We have mapped the invisible cities. We know how their factories work, how they trade, and how they divide. But if we are now learning how to literally write the software to program the invisible factories that build living things, what incredible new frontiers are we going to cross next? What will we choose to build? Thanks for joining me, and keep questioning the invisible world around you.